So now we get to the point in this little mini-series about 5e D&D personal characteristics that we've all been waiting for. Or at least that I have. Today we're going to talk about flaws. So, in my opinion, flaws might be the most important of the personality characteristics, personal characteristics, because most likely it's that one thing, it's that one blemish that really distinguishes your character. See, when we're especially new to playing Dungeons & Dragons, playing role-playing games in general, and especially when we get into role-playing our characters, it's real easy to sort of fall into the trap of making a perfect character. Someone who is apparently flawless, the penultimate hero. That could be interesting, however, it's very cliche, and more likely, it's going to be too squeaky clean and kind of boring. And you really won't have much of the juicy depth that you'd like to have, or at least I think we would like to have, when we get into actually really getting into role-playing with the other players at the table, with the NPCs that the DM presents, and so forth. So, picking a flaw might possibly be the most important of these characteristics that we choose. See, here's the thing. We can have negative characteristics. We could have, for instance, we could have a personality trait that some people see as possibly negative. Perhaps we're all of our conversations are sarcastic to an extreme. Okay, that's a personality trait. That's not really a flaw, because a flaw, see, here's the key. A flaw is something that is basically, let me say it this way. A flaw has the potential to push our character past the breaking point. It's something that maybe an evil NPC, or hopefully not, but potentially even some of the other players, can use to perhaps manipulate our character. You see, flaws are those fears or compulsions, the vices or the weaknesses that other people can maneuver us with, and that might, when they reveal themselves or when they come to the fore in our role-playing, they might lead us to ruin. You know, if we have a flaw that says we cannot pass up the opportunity to make a bet, that obviously that could lead us to financial ruin. However, think about this. Let's say your character is a compulsive gambler. If my NPC, if I'm the DM and I have an NPC that knows that about your character, what if I bet you that you can't face down a dragon single-handedly? If you're compelled, if you have a compulsion to gamble, you might do some really crazy things. Now, that's a very extreme example, but this gets into the like, oh my aspect of why flaws can be so delicious, so enriching for our characters. You see, when we come down to basics, this is kind of like basic acting, basic improv, or basic role-playing, right? The reality is, a character without flaws is flat and boring. Any good actor worth their weight, any good role player, they won't want to play someone like that. And if they were presented with a character like that, they would probably find things that might be flaws about this person. It's those blemishes, it's those imperfections that make us seem, I guess I'll say, human. Of course, you might be playing an elf or a dwarf or whatever, so maybe your flaw is slightly different than what might be important for a human. The point being, in role-playing, in these games, especially in Dungeons & Dragons, it's essentially a reflection of the world that we actually live. So having those imperfections, those character flaws, make us a really well-rounded person. It can give us that That thing that, like, gosh, if anyone knew this, I'd be in trouble because. But it can also give us that sort of, someday I'm going to conquer this. Someday I won't bite my nails anymore. That's really weak, but that is a compulsion. So, but someday I won't blurt out the truth all the time. Someday I won't gamble all my money away. Someday I won't be afraid of spiders. Someday I will conquer my fear of spiders. See, when we look at the fears and compulsions might be the easiest ones to address. These kind of float to the surface more quickly probably than others. We can look at weaknesses and vices in this realm as well. And I would recommend a couple of questions to sort of get this, juices flowing, to spark some inspiration if that's what you're looking for. And those questions might be, what truly enrages your character? And I'm not talking about barbarians, right? Any character could boil over in the right circumstance. So what enrages your character? What is it that they would just lose their, cool? What would they lose it over? Also, what is that one person or event or circumstance that they are absolutely terrified of? Like maybe your character went to jail and it was the most horrid experience of their life, and they are absolutely petrified of ever going back to jail again. That character is going to act in very specific ways, especially in a campaign where breaking the law has dire consequences. And ultimately, another question we can ask is, what are those secret vices, perhaps that we, like I just said, want to keep secret? It's something maybe no one else really does know about, and if they did, it would embarrass us. It would be something that we couldn't fight off. Like, for instance, here's another simple one. Let's say you have a vice where you just can't help that you really like to steal stuff. I mean, that's an easy one for a rogue, right? But what if you're not a rogue? What if you're playing like a cleric or a ranger or any class that just happens to have this habit of like taking things that clearly are not theirs? See, there's all kinds of fun things that you can throw a little flavor. This is like the seasoning, the spice, right? If you're making a meal, you're cooking something with like only one seasoning, even only 2 or 3 seasonings, if there isn't some kind of a counterbalance to it, it might be flat or it might be overpowering. The best chefs, the best meals are the ones where all of the flavors blend together to make something interesting, exciting, and savory. And that's what we want to do with these personal characteristics. We want to take our personality traits, our ideals, our bonds, and our flaws, and we want to blend them together to make a well-rounded and interesting individual. Someone who will be fun for us to get into the skin of, someone who will be fun to interact with for the DM and everyone at the table, and someone who will lead us to maybe even discovering something about ourselves or about the world we all live in. As always, there are, of course, the suggested flaws from the backgrounds. You, by all means, can roll on them and just come up with them, or pick one if you like one, you see one that fits the concept you have for your character. If you are interested in creating your own, hopefully this gives you a good framework, a good format for you to go ahead and do that. Now, this was super fun to do this little mini series here. I would love to get feedback from you. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Was it informative? Is there something you think I missed? I possibly will do a recap tomorrow, although I'm not so sure we need it. However, I am going to probably do some more mini-series in the future. I have a few ideas, and I would love to have some thoughts from you, the audience, because after all, I'm making these videos because I love making them. I'm also making them because I hope you enjoy them. Hey, If you want more, or if you perhaps missed one of the other videos in this mini-series, check out the videos below this, and by all means, I'll see you at a table someday. Keep rolling 20s until then, and remember, it's your game, play your way.